So in general, everybody has reason for their actions. Now whether that reason is valid or not, that is to be seen. So hurt people. When I am hurt by someone, I hurt the other person. But when we are hurt, our emotions take over and then we lose a sense of proportion. Suppose I am walking along and somebody steps on my leg. I may feel hurt. But if I get angry and take a knife and stab them because of that, that's a completely disproportionate reaction. I am hurt. I have reason to be annoyed or angry. But I can't go and stab someone. So similarly, Ashwatthama, he felt that his father had been killed unfairly. So Drona was killed on the 15th day of the Kurukshetra war. And he felt the Pandavas who killed his father unfairly, they also deserved to be killed unfairly. And that's why that's how he rationalized what he had done. However, if we see the situation, it was not that Drona was killed unfairly. Drona was killed in an unfair way, but it was not an organized conspiracy. The whole background story is that, by the way, how many of you are not aware of the Mahabharata at all? Because then this whole context may seem a little strange. I'll keep this answer brief, then and we can talk more. But anyway, the point that the Pandavas, Yudhishthir did tell Drona that Ashwatthama has been killed, and that's why Drona put his weapon down. The Pandavas' plan at that time that after Drona is disarmed, has put down his arms, they will arrest him, and they will keep him in house arrest till the war gets over. They respected him as their teacher, and they didn't desire to kill him. If that was what they had to do, they would do it. But at least at that time, their plan was to arrest him. So things went as per plan. Ashwatthama and Drona put his weapons down, and he started going into meditation. Just closed his eyes and started going into trance. So at that time, Drishtadyumna, who had been born because of his father's desire to take revenge against Drona, he grabbed that opportunity and charged towards Drona. At that time, Arjuna shouted at him, "Stop!" Several other Pandava warriors told him, "Stop, you cannot do this." But without listening to anyone, he lopped off the head of Drona. Now there was almost a split among the Pandavas at that time. Arjuna was so angry. Arjuna wanted to punish Drishtadyumna for what he had done. But then Krishna tried to calm them down. The point was that the Pandavas did not in an organized way conspire to kill a defenseless Drona. So Drona was killed wrongly, that's true. And if at all he felt that Drona had been killed wrongly, he could have killed Drishtadyumna. But he rationalized, he was hurt and he felt that because they have killed him unfairly, I have a right to kill them unfairly. And then he decided that he not only killed Drishtadyumna when he was sleeping, something similar to Drona. Drona was not conscious at that time, lopped off his head. But he killed Drishtadyumna very bitterly. Drishtadyumna was sleeping and he crushed him by kicking him again and again and again and again brutally till he died. So he did not just lop off his head, he caused him much more pain. But then he didn't stop there. He killed everyone. Although most of them were defenseless, unalert. So at that time he lost his whole moral bearing. So we can say that our past hurts can explain our actions. Our past hurts can explain our emotions, but they don't excuse our actions. Now, that means yes, he was hurt and we can know why he was so hurt. And his feeling of resentment, anger, it's all true. Our past hurts can explain our emotions, but they don't excuse our actions. We may feel in a particular way, but still we have a responsibility to act in a proper way. So he lost sense of perspective over there. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, please.
In the beginning you said we have to modulate our responses and by being sensitive and see, what is the context. but as we saw in certain situations, we lose control of the situation because of the modes that generally act on people. So how do you deal with a situation where you can see the modes acting on you? So you are at least introspective of yourself, you see the modes acting on you, but you are unable to check them. So how do you modulate your responses in such a situation?
So when we see that the modes are affecting us and they're preventing us from modulating our reactions, then what do we do? Yeah, sometimes we may just overreact, but we all can learn by experience. So if you're going on the road for the first time and there's a bump over there, we don't know, we get jolted. But next time when we go on that road, we'll slow down because we know there's a bump over there. Similarly, if we look at our life, we can ourselves understand which are the situations when I get provoked. And then if we sense that that kind of situation is approaching now, then that time itself we will slow down. Okay. So for example, it may happen that if at the end of a long exhausting day of work, somebody does something and that just irritates us. So then if we know that in advance, then we may plan in advance that high voltage issues I will not take at the end of the day. So we all may all have a prominent mode which we are functioning, but we all are sometimes in the mode of goodness. At that time we can reflect. So certain things may happen just because of the force of situations or force of our conditionings. But when we are in the mode of goodness, we can reflect. And then we can understand, okay, in this situation I do like this. So in the mode of goodness, if we do self-observation, then we can come up with plans about how to avoid getting provoked or how to avoid getting into provocative situations. Sometimes it may not be possible to avoid, but many times it is. So if we can avoid, not necessarily avoid entirely, but at least postpone. Let's deal with this when both of us are calm. Let's deal with it at a time and place where both of us can have a proper discussion. That's the first thing. Preparation can minimize problems quite a bit. Second is that we all need to find out some kind of pause button that works for us. That means that when our emotions are pushing us in a particular direction, it's like if there is a movie that is playing or an audio track that is playing, there's stop, play, and there's pause. So pause. Let me not do anything right. Let me pause. Let me take. Then how do we pause? There are various ways. We might just say, let me take deep breaths. See, our breathing is very closely related with our emotions. To slow down our breathing, our emotions also slow down. The mind speed is sometimes, especially the mind speed because of wild emotions, is reflected in our breathing speed. So if we slow down the breathing, the mind also slows down to some extent. But just decide, let me take deep breaths. Or we may decide, when I'm angry, I'll chant some mantras. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra one round or a few mantras, only then I'll speak. If I have to speak something. Or we may decide that if we have some quotes about the danger of anger, the danger of offending others, we can keep those quotes in our phone with us and then look at those quotes. That will remember us. I find one quote that those who anger us, conquer us. Sometimes some people deliberately want to provoke us and then they make us do some things which they will hold against us. Just see you like that. So those who anger us, conquer us. So we keep some quotes like that which will remind us, okay, now calm down, calm down. So basically, we can create a pause button for ourselves. And lastly, we all need to practice bhakti diligently, by which we start going beyond the influence of the modes. So the process of bhakti does have a gradual purificatory effect. But if we practice bhakti sincerely, then just at that time when the emotion is about to take over us, that time Krishna will remind us, hey, no, don't do this. So if during the time when we are practicing bhakti, we show Krishna sincerely, I want to serve you, Krishna, then Krishna will give us the intelligence at that time to pause, to check ourselves. Okay? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Anuj.
Just carrying on from what you were saying just now, if the issue just reoccurs all the time, it's like an ongoing, every few days, this situation happens, how do you deal with that?
Okay, so if a provocative situation keeps reappearing every few days, how do we deal with that? Broadly, we have to, just going back to the road example, that bump is there anyway. So what do I do about it? I just learn to live with it. I slow down, every time I come near the bump, I let it slow down and move forward. Or if I don't want to do that, then I find some other road to go along and get to my destination by some other road. So I would say that if we find that provoking situations come up repeatedly, then either the two people, they are of such a nature that they are not able to get along with each other so well. So then we might just need to have a little distance in that relationship. Not that we have to break the relationship, but often we may expect something in the relationship which is just not going to be fulfilled. So then if we understand this person is like that, some people just forget things. And every time we tell them something is important, they forget it. Something is important, they forget it. Then, if once happens, twice happens, thrice happens, then we might get angry again and again, and then we realize by anger I am only wasting my emotion. It's not going to change them. Then stop expecting them to change. Then understand they are like that. And then if something important is there, then we have to remind it to them again and again and again. Or then we don't don't expect that kind of things on them. Tell somebody else to do that. So I was staying with some devotees, and the devotee couple, the husband is very forgetful. So every time, so both husband and wife are working. So every time the Prabhu goes to office or comes back from office, before he starts off, his wife calls him. Have you taken this? And every day she does that. So he was driving me from the temple back to the home, and his wife called. He said, have you taken this? So he was saying, yes. And as she was telling him, looking, yes. Oh, I have not taken this. He went and got it then. So then I asked him, doesn't it feel demeaning that every time you're traveling, every time she tells you like this? He says, no. He says, this is my weakness. I know that. And she's helping me. And he says that, she is not very good at finances. So he says, I take care of all the finances at home. So sometimes instead of condemning people, instead of condemning, we can compliment them. Not compliment in the sense that compliment means not L-I-M-E-N-T, L-E-M-N-T. Compliment is appreciate, compliment is also to complete. No, you are good at this, I am good at this, let's be a team together. So sometimes we just have to, if repeated negative interactions are there, just stop expecting something from some people. It may be difficult because it may be very easy for us, it's so obvious, why can't you do this? But again the problem comes because we see how easy it is from our context. For us to remember things may be very easy. But when we compare with others, instead of comparing their weakness with our strength, we can compare their weakness with our weakness. So, if say somebody is very forgetful of things, but then somebody else is very good at finances, you invest money here and increase, you do this. Now if I think, okay, it's so difficult for me to decide where to invest money, how to do this. But, so just as this is difficult for me, that is difficult for them. So if we see that different people are coming from different contexts, then we will compare what they find difficult with something else which we find difficult. Not how easy it is for me. Because I have my own mind and body. So that's one way. That sometimes we just have to learn to live with it. And the second could be that we need to have proper communication. Maybe sometimes we just sit and talk and explain how this is so important for us and how this makes us so disturbed when it is not done. Many times what happens, two people have some issues, but instead of talking with each other, we talk about each other. A has some issue with B, but A doesn't talk with B, A talks with C. And then C talks with D. And D talks with B. And every time what happens, by the time it goes to C and D, it also becomes exaggerated. And then B has, A says like this about me. And then B says, you know what A does? And then A tells D. And D tells C. And then it comes back, it says like that about me. It just becomes worse and worse. So, of course, sometimes if we have a close confidant, a close friend, whom we can just unburden our emotions sometimes, that is good. But they need to be able to keep confidences. So in general, if we have some issue with someone, it is good to talk with them instead of talking about them. And we talk with them and clearly explain in a non-accusatory way. Not that you are so irresponsible, but when you don't do this, I feel very hurt because this is so important for me for this. So when we make it objective, basically we need to learn to separate people from their weaknesses. What happens is tomorrow I'll talk about the 3 modes and how they affect our perception of others. When we say you are so irresponsible, then immediately people feel defensive. How can you call me irresponsible? But when we stick to facts, when you do like when you forget to do this, it just irritates me because this is so important. Whatever. When we stick to facts, separate people's behavior from the people, then what happens? People don't feel personally threatened. Generally, in close relationships, people don't want to hurt each other. It just happens. That's the way of the world. But if they understood, okay, this is going to hurt you so much, then very often they may not do that. So that's either we decrease our expectations by becoming more understanding of their weaknesses, or we communicate clearly. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. So, shall we stop here, bro? Yeah. So, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari.
So let's thank Chaitanya Charan Prabhu.
So I'm grateful to be here amongst all of you, and I'm sorry we got a little late, got in the traffic way too much while coming from.